A lot of people, I think, are scared, even in their late 20s, to get started just because there can be some risk involved with it.
So that's how I developed how to learn how to do that, which now is becoming our biggest lead source just because of how cheap it is and how effective it is.
Want to meet a 21-year-old bringing in over $700,000 a year on very little ad spend? Dawson Skorcheski is going to share how he started investing in real estate part-time, only working 1 hour a day while he was going to school and playing college baseball. He's going to share his favorite strategies, his first deal that got him started, and how he will do close to 100 deals this year. We talk about the mindset and drive it takes to be successful and how to use your time wisely if you only have a little bit of time to dedicate to this business. All right, Dawson, 21 years old, man. What is the secret to you being so successful at such a young age?
It's nothing. I wouldn't say that I'm extraordinary by any means. Came from a very normal family, came from a very normal background. I don't have a crazy story at all. I think it's just the ability to commit to something, right? I think a lot of people just they dabble into different things here and there, woman in the red dress type things and shiny object syndrome, but they never commit to one thing. And I think that's what got me here today, was just committing to one dialed in thing that got us where we are today. So
Cool. And tell us how you got started in the business.
yeah, so I was in college. I was playing college baseball at a small NAI school about an hour and a half away from my hometown. And it was a smaller city than where I grew up, so it's a little bit different. And so I was studying accounting, and there was kind of some different people that came into class that day who were accountants. They're like, man, yeah, if you work really hard and you move up in the company, you can make $50,000 after 5 years of working with the company. And I'm like, that's ridiculous, right? So I'm like, that's just not who I am. That's not which is fine. But for me, that just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I just ended up trying to figure out different side hustles because I was couch flipping at the time, actually, with like Brian Pineda style and all that stuff. Did pretty well doing that. And so I was like, okay, I've sold like 75, 100 couches at this point, doing, a couple grand a week, $1,000 a week at that point. And so then I was like, okay, how can I turn this into something that is maybe more high ticket than couches, right? Because I'd pick up a couch on Facebook and then I'd resell it right on Facebook again, right, for like $400 more usually. And I was like, well, $400 is great, but I want something more high ticket. Like, this is not, I'm not going to flip couches for the rest of my life. And so obviously through TikTok and social media, right? I'm like, well, this is the same exact concept as couch flipping in my mind, right? You just find a person who wants to get rid of the couch, right? In this situation, it's a house. For whatever reason, usually it's speed and convenience, right? And so then would take the couch and resell it, and that's the same concept with real estate investing, pretty much. And so that's how I started deep diving into it and really committed to making cold calls right away, because that was for me the cheapest way that I could get some deals with competition and things, because there's a big timing factor. I'd catch these people at the right time, so that's kind of the big deal there. But that's kind of how I got started with the ball rolling. Got my first deal off a cold call out of my dorm room, and did a JV deal with a nice guy here in town who also does the same thing. So that's kind of how it worked out.
Nice. How long was it from when you got started to when you actually found your first deal to when you actually closed and had a check in your hand? And tell me about that first
Oh
deal.
yeah. Yeah, so it took me about 3.5 months roughly to get like an actual first deal, 3.5 months of cold calling, because I probably had maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours a day with class, baseball, and all that stuff, right? So then I had about an hour and a half each weekday to call. Took about 3.5 months to finally get in touch with the what ended up being my first deal. So then that one, we got it under contract 3.5 months after I started. And it ended up closing 3 months later just because it was owner occupied. So they had to find a place to go. Ended up finding a place to go. And then my second deal actually closed. My second deal that we had got under contract closed before that one. So it's, I would say check in hand, it was probably around 4.5, 5 months check in hand. But that first deal I got a check for probably 6 months from when I started. So
Nice. And how much was that first deal that you got?
so it was a $20,000 fee that I split. So it was around 10,000 that I took home.
Nice. Awesome. So a couple things that you said that stuck out. So I feel like a lot of people that are successful have two big things that I kind of took notes on already. One is just the mindset, right? A lot of people
Right.
have the mindset of going to school and getting a job, and which there's nothing wrong with that. And I think for some people, that's kind of what they need, right? They need structure, they need to go work for somebody because they just don't have that thing that some people have to
Right.
kind of start their own business, right? And
Yeah.
then the second note I put here was drive, or the second word. I think
Yeah.
just the drive, like, you even though you have the mindset, like some people may know that there's another way to create wealth and success. And it seems like the people that are successful have the drive to do it. So not only did you know what
Right.
was good, but you actually took the action. I mean, gosh, you were going to school playing baseball, and I know what it's like to play baseball or play college sports. I played college football for a year, and the
Nice.
dedication
Yeah.
it takes to be good at a
Right.
sport, especially in college, is pretty big. So to
Yeah.
find the time to actually go and start this, I commend you for it, because the mindset, the
Yeah.
drive, and everything you had to do to kind of get started and going. Um,
Right.
and at your age too. I mean, I started at 21 as well, and I'm glad I started when I did. And a
Right.
lot of people, I think, are scared at 21, 22, even in their late 20s to get started, just because there
Right.
can be some risk involved with it.
Right.
So tell me about the business now. From my notes here, it looks like you did $700,000 in assignment fees. I don't know if that was last year or within the last 12 months, but to do that at your age with a very small ad spend, which it sounds like you're not spending a lot of money, kind of
Hmm.
tell us about that, how you've been able to, at a young age, busy with school and sports, been able
Right.
to scale up your business to that level so quickly. Want to get motivated sellers that nobody knows about? Introducing 10x TV. If you want to create credibility in your market, find deals that nobody else knows about, and crush your competition, you need to check into TV commercials. It is the new buzz in the real estate investing industry since we introduced it several years ago. I've been using TV commercials myself for the last 12 years, and it's absolutely crushed it. So if you want to learn how to get on TV and to do something that little to no people are doing right now, go to claimmymarket.com. Again, that's claimmymarket.com. We usually only work with 2 investors per market, so if you're interested, reach out to us and book a call to see if you can claim your market before anybody else does. Now back to the show.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a big factor of it was just using your time wisely, right? I think when I did have that hour and a half a day, right, I knew that I had to spend that hour doing something that was going to push me forward, right? So with kind of how the business sets it up is we obviously have all of our marketing channels that are coming through. And yes, the 700,000 is in the last 12 months. And that does include assignment fees and fix and flips, right? So we're probably flipping around 1 in every 10. So the very bare bones, the very cosmetic, the very 1 week in and out, very easy flips. We don't take on anything that needs extended renovation just because we like to have quick turnarounds. But yeah, so I guess kind of how it compounded was, I got that first deal, cold calling, spending the only time that I really had. You just got to make do with what you got, right? And so then that turned into that one deal, and then I ended up not going back to school that year. So then, or the next year, so then I had the whole summer to kind of start compiling things, and I spent pretty much the entire summer just cold calling all day for 8 hours a day, and would end up going on to cold call on a dialer for the next year roughly, which is crazy. But it was one of those things where I started out with cold calling just because that was my way of, like I mentioned before, of just getting deals while still being able to beat your competition, just because there's that timing ability. Because there's going to be people who are always going to be able to outspend you. There's going to be people who are always going to get to things before you do with the right data, right? So at the time, I'm like, cold calling the apps and blanketing my market is probably the best way to go right now. So then did probably 3 to 5 deals right away, doing that in the next coming year right after I did that first deal. So the rest of the 8 months probably did 3 to 5 deals that year. And then what ended up happening was like, okay, I've done cold calling for a long time, it's working. How can I delegate this? So kind of what happened was then I started I hired 2 VAs, right? So I hired the 2 VAs, right, starting out, delegated pretty much everything I had to do. So now I'm like, okay, now I have time on my hands. So we have cold callers going, and I'm still getting leads. I'm still doing everything. They're very well trained. so now what else is new for me, right? What else is next? Because now I need to use my time to get more marketing sources so that way we're still compiling deals. And that's when I came across organic SEO, which now is becoming our biggest lead source, just because of how cheap it is and how effective it is. And so that's how I developed how to learn how to do that. So fast forward, 6 months after that, I ended up figuring out how to get our website ranked for, high motivating keywords, like sell my house fast, cash home buyers, in our specific city. And it ended up doing very, very well. Because that was just kind of the whole idea. I'm like, well, I do the outbound, I have the texting campaigns going, I have the cold calling, but what is an inbound lead source that I could actually, without spending thousands that I didn't have, right? To get some of these deals. And so that was organic SEO for me. And so that's kind of what happened. Was then I developed the website, then I had the cold callers. Then it kind of transitioned into pre-foreclosures. So I got big into pre-foreclosures and getting close with our local pre-foreclosure foreclosure attorney office here in town. And that's where we were getting access to data for who were going into foreclosure in that pre-foreclosure stage before it was launched publicly, right? So that was a big deal for us because we knew how to, get this data and also convert it at the same time. Because I think that's a big mistake with pre-foreclosures that a lot of people see is they assume that these people have never thought about selling their house before. It's like they all trust me, if they would not be in foreclosure if they wanted, if they would have sold their house by now if they didn't want to keep it, right? So we just figured out a kind of a good way to also make a win-win situation for everybody. And so more of a helping hand instead of acting like you have the gold nugget was kind of the thing there, with pre-foreclosures. So kind of combining all of that stuff, pre-foreclosures, the website, the cold callers, and all that stuff. And now we transitioned once we started getting fix and flips, and we made a deal with all of the cash buyers that we had, to put bandit signs out in front of all of the deals that we do locally, since we do only deals local in our area. And so we put bandit signs in front of all the wholesale deals we do and all the flips that we do. And surprisingly enough, a bright yellow, ugly bandit sign that says I buy houses and the phone number and nothing else. I tell you what, we probably do 5 to 10 deals a year just from that. It's shocking what it can do, but overall, to kind of land this plane here, it's one of those things with marketing that we were able to do all that stuff, but at a very lean cost per month of what we were paying to do all of this. So I mean, we spend roughly $3,000 a month with everything, with all of our marketing and everything to get these leads that we do. And I think it was just the idea of starting on one marketing source, figuring it out, delegating it, and then kind of setting up an automation for it, and then going on to the next one and just constantly building from there.
Nice. That's smart. A lot of
Yeah.
people will throw like 10 irons in the fire and try and do 10 different
Right.
things at once and not do any of them well. So that's very
Right.
smart, getting one down pat and then start adding
Mhm.
other things.
Yeah.
So obviously you're early in your journey. What are some lessons you've learned in the first, year and a half or so since you've been doing this, or maybe almost 2 years, that you feel like people should know about when they start their real estate journey?
No, yeah, great question. I think the first thing that I definitely would say to anyone, is you don't have to be prepared for everything. You don't have to know everything about what is going to happen with this, that, whatever. When I did my first deal, I didn't know even what a purchase agreement, any of it meant. I didn't know anything. That's where you find JV partners. You can leverage people to get help, right away, which is what I would recommend for every newbie out there. Is to partner with a local JV person in your market that obviously is a good guy, because they could screw you over down the road if they want to. But
Yeah.
somebody who's a good guy who's willing to take some time to help you, benefited me a ton. And so I guess the biggest lesson I've learned is you don't need buyers right away, and you don't need to know paperwork. You don't need to know how to transact, because the way that I've kind of always gone about wholesaling and flipping is this is a marketing and sales type of business. At the end of the day, if you have a motivated seller, you will have no problem getting rid of it. I promise. Like, if it's a real deal, you will have no issue finding somebody who's going to buy it. I promise. Like, it might even, if it's a good enough deal, all it takes is usually one phone call to the right person, and that's it. And so that's what I'd recommend to every newbie, and even people who have been in this industry for a while, is going into these things, when you're trying out new marketing methods or you're brand new, you don't need to know everything about it. Just start it, and you'll figure it out along the way. So
Yeah, that's the biggest thing when I talk to people about investing in real estate. They're like, "Oh man, I'd love to
Yeah.
invest in real estate, but I just don't have the money," and that's
Right.
a lot of people's mindset. It's
Right.
it's kind of funny how similar you and I are because I started at 21 as well. I ended up
Right.
dropping out of college as well to kind of continue my. I was further in it. I think I only had 9 hours left to graduate before I ended up dropping out of college. But
Right.
I actually told myself I would go back. I just never did. So I didn't technically drop out. I just paused and just didn't go back. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's and I had the same mindset. Like I literally knew nothing. I ordered an info product on TV. I read it. It was a
Right.
binder with CDs. It was CDs at that time back in
Oh
2001.
wow. Yeah.
And honestly, I just started calling people out of the newspaper and
Hmm.
agents and motivated sellers. At that point, you couldn't tell if they were motivated or not, but I just call out in the newspaper. And that's actually
Right.
how I found my first deal. I called, an agent answered, said, "Yep, I've got this deal. It's a fixer-upper." Went and looked at it, put it under contract, and then I didn't know how I was going to buy it. I just figured it out, right? I went
Right.
to a bank, I went to my dad, tried to figure out how to get the money, and within
Hmm.
30 days after having this property under contract, I just figured it out. I had to. I had this property under contract. I could either let it
Right.
go or I could figure out how to find the money, and that's what happens when you put yourself in a position um when you're doing something, you just kind of have to figure it out, right? It's kind of like jumping
Right.
jumping off a cliff, like they say, and building your wings on the way down, right?
Exactly.
And it's not for
Exactly.
everybody, right? You got to have the
No, no, it's not. I mean,
gotta,
and what's so impressive about especially your story too, I would argue that your story is more impressive than mine because being in the day and age of my generation, you have so much access to so much information nowadays that it's crazy. I mean, you're calling out of a newspaper while I was on a dialer 8 hours a day, contacting probably 50 times the people you were at my age, right? So that ability. I think what's even more impressive about your story is just the fact that you probably had to grind a lot more than than the average person would nowadays. Which is funny to see, but
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that that is
yeah,
true. I mean, the access we have to, like I even say, like, you can listen to a podcast today and literally be an investor within like 48 hours because you can
yeah,
subscribe to a software, buy a list, and just start dialing and, start talking to
hmm,
sellers right away. So the access that people have to tool system and software and the education to do it is very ample right now.
oh for sure,
So I know I keep saying this, but at your age, 21, you seem to be very
hmm.
advanced and very wise for your age. Where do you think you got that? Do you feel like that was just something that was kind of inside of you? Do you feel like in the last like couple of years, maybe you've surrounded yourself with the right people, that you've listened to the right podcasts? Like, what do you think is really driven you to kind of where you are in the last couple of years?
No, yeah, that's a great question. So I know that some people have stories of like, oh, I came out the mud and I was broke, poor, my parents' house got foreclosed on. That is not me at all. I came from a very great family. Both my parents are very middle class, work middle class. Um, Came from really no issues at all. I mean, I had a car in high school, like I had all that stuff. So I don't want to come across like, oh man, I had it so rough. That's how I came out the mud, like a lot of these people you'll see. But I'm very, very typical. But it was more so, I think I had great parents to look up to as a kid who they did work very hard. And so for me, especially my dad, who worked very long hours, got up very early in the morning, things like that, I would see that as a kid, and I just thought that was normal, right? And so it was, come to find out when I got older that a lot of these parents, and other role models, they don't necessarily do what my parents did, right? And so they worked very hard, and so I had that growing up as well. But then, yeah, I mean, it was a part of me where just kind of throughout my life, I always had something where I just hated being the guy who was unprepared. I hated being the guy who wasn't couldn't put his full potential out there. So especially when I was playing baseball as a younger kid, I was never the best player. I was always very small. I was undersized. You have a lot of things against you in sports and things like that, but I think it was just the ability to be like, okay, what is my only decision that I can control is to work hard. At the end of the day, there's only a few things you can control in life, and that's what you spend your time on, and how you're going to progress yourself forward. You can't control how big you are, how good you are at swinging a bat, right? And so I developed that concept at a very young age, especially getting heartbreaking news at the time, and I'm like 10 years old, didn't make the team that I wanted, and so those things kind of in life compile back on, and you develop good habits when you have things that maybe don't go your way. So
Yeah, awesome. One other thing I wrote
yeah.
down here is, you said you worked about an hour a day cold calling, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of Parkinson's law, or maybe you haven't, but
Yeah.
the time you allow, the time you give it is what I can't remember how to say it, but basically, if you work an hour a day, sometimes you can get more done or as much
Hmm.
done working 8 hours a day, right?
Right.
So, working very smart and efficiently with the time that you had. Because I bet if you had 8 hours in a day, that you may not have gotten done, and maybe you would have gotten more done, but taking that 8 hour day that usually people work and condensing it 1 hour, you probably had to take that 1 hour and be very smart with it, right? You had to condense
Yeah.
pretty much a whole workday into 1 hour. So to kind
Hmm.
of talk about that a little bit, do you feel like that kind of pressed you to like make sure that 1 hour that you used every day that you had was way better used than, maybe working, 3 to 4 hours in a day?
Oh yeah, 100%. I can say without a doubt that Parkinson's law naturally, before I knew what even was at the time, that I only had that hour. So what I started out was hand dialing, right? I was hand dialing from my cell phone, and you come soon to find out, oh, people don't answer the phone from a random number sometimes, right? And so then I realized I'm like, okay, then I'm going to go to the Google Voice number, because I was like, okay, well, I looked up on YouTube, what's a free way I can dial faster, right? You can do the Google Voice number. You just copy and paste the numbers from a prop stream list I had at the time, right? This is too slow. I'm talking to maybe one or two people in this hour that I'm spending dialing. I'm spending more time dialing than actually talking to people. So with having only that hour, that's when I discovered what an automatic dialer was. When I came across what an automatic dialer was, I was like, holy smokes, like this is insane, right? So then I basically spent all my time trying to figure out, okay, how can I get this dialer locked in, so I all I need to do is press a button, start running phone calls, and that's it. Like, I don't even need to dial anything like that. And that was a huge game changer, just because of the fact that I only had an hour. I don't know if I would have discovered an automatic dialer if I had 8 hours in the day, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Love it. Love
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Um, who do you look up to? Like, who are your mentors? Like, obviously, getting into this business, you typically see people that are doing certain things, and you kind of maybe
Right.
get motivated by, listening to podcasts or kind of seeing things out there. Do you have anybody that you kind of look up to that you say, hey, I kind of want to model this? Maybe someone you don't know, and is there any mentor in your life that you have, besides your dad, maybe, that kind of helps you kind of along this path of getting into business?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have people I look up to. I'm lucky enough being in an area, in a metro area, that it's roughly 275,000 people here. So it's nothing too crazy, and so it's a lot easier to get access to very high level people who live around here. So usually once a month, we have this group that we meet with in town here, at one of the guy who hosts at his office space, and these are very high net worth individuals that I luckily am able to be in this room. Definitely not because of my net worth. It's because of just me having the work ethic to get in there. That's for sure. But no, and that's a big thing too, is because I'm seeing a lot what these guys are doing, as far as with their business. Not so much necessarily what they're physically doing with their business, but more so how they think about it. Right, is a big thing too. They think about, oh yeah, like I'm going to hire this person to do this, and we'll see if it works. Where some people are so afraid of hiring people because they don't want to waste money on hiring people, where they have such a different look at it. They're the type of people where they refuse to work, quote unquote, the cash register, right, in their business. It's such a different way to look at things. So you get opened up to a lot of different stuff locally. So I'm lucky enough to have that group locally. But also, yeah, I mean, there's definitely people on social media that I look up to that I think do it very, very well. I think, I mean, a lot of people would say this guy too, but Alex Hormozy, I think he's a guy who he's very, very intelligent in the fact of just making sure he's using his energy in the right places, and making sure that he's just so raw in the fact of, okay, I'm not going to do things if it doesn't work. Like, if I'm not going to waste my time, he doesn't waste his time doing business theater, setting up a logo, setting up web design. It's like, that's not going to get you farther and where you need to go. It's doing the actual work, and I think that's what I model so much about him. But and lastly, definitely a guy I look up to in the pre-foreclosure space and in the real estate space is Michael Frankie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who he is,
Yeah.
but he's a Kansas City guy. He's up and coming as far as his social media brand. He's getting up there. But yeah, he's probably one of the most genius pre-foreclosure guys I've ever seen. And so he's just a Kansas City guy. All he does is pre-foreclosures in Kansas City. And so he just created this community called Niche Community. I'm not in it, but it's definitely something if you're looking to learn how to do pre-foreclosures correctly. And so he's a very good role model because all he does is pre-foreclosures and that's it. Obviously with the laws in Kansas City, there's definitely benefit on his side just with how fast they turn things. So people are more motivated in a city like that with foreclosure specifically. But that's he does a lot of things right. He does a lot of business things right, and so that's another guy that I look up to as well. So
Nice.
yeah.
What are some principles you live by? Obviously, you said hard work. It sounds like that was just kind of instilled in you from a young age from your dad. Any other principles that you live by that you feel like are very important to you?
Yeah, I mean, it mainly my big mantra is just straight up just commit, right? That's kind of where I am a big deal. Like you don't have to know everything. I know we talked about it before. Don't have to know everything going into this stuff. Like going in blind is almost sometimes better because if you did know what was behind that wall, I mean, you probably wouldn't even start, right? So you don't want to have too many dishes in the sink. Just wash one dish at a time. That's just kind of how I guess I do things because every single day in this business, with the roles I'm lucky enough to have now, is I'm just trying to move the company forward, right? So moving the company forward is constantly learning new things, constantly improving things, and looking at what you already have to improve. And so that's kind of my big mantra is just commit. Just don't watch another YouTube video, don't watch another how to, don't watch anything else. Just straight up commit. So
Nice. What based on the market, you're in a pretty small market, and I've heard people say that, smaller markets, to me, I love smaller markets, especially clients that
yeah,
we, get on TV because we can spend a little amount of money and really get good
yeah,
results because we're saturating a small market.
yeah.
What do you think the advantage and disadvantage of being in a small market is for you?
Right. Yeah. There's definitely good things and bad things. I think the good thing that I would say right away is in the beginning, it is definitely a lot easier to start. It's definitely a lot easier to leave a footprint in the city at a very beginning stage, right? Where if you go to a place like Phoenix, yeah, that's going to be very difficult for in the beginning stages, right? But in a place like Sioux Falls, where I'm at, it was a lot simpler, I would say, than a lot of other places to maybe get that first deal or get that those first few deals. So then that way you meet the right people and kind of compound on top of that. But I think definitely that was a huge advantage because you get a lot more access to a lot more people a lot easier. But the disadvantage I would definitely say is definitely deal flow because in a small city like this is the Sioux Falls is a very niche city that there's not really much around it. Like the closest thing that's bigger is about northeast 4 hours is Minneapolis. That's about the closest thing that and right after that it's kind of us right around for the next statewide almost pretty much. So that's where deal flow can come into things where it's like okay you kind of get capped after a while when you do so many deals like this year we'll do roughly we're going to hit that 90 to 100 deals mark this year which is shocking when people hear that in such a smaller area but when you do leave a good footprint and kind of saturate your market it kind of happens naturally but I think for one thing is you do kind of cap yourself as far as like okay with all these marketing methods, I'm only willing to spend this much a month on marketing. You're capping yourself for sure as far as deal flow. But honestly, that could be anywhere. But I know things need to go a lot longer. That's why the flipping came up and things like that. Because sometimes these home run assignments aren't showing up every day. So you got to flip some things. You got to kind of adjust, right? That's kind of the only disadvantage.
Yep, cool.
Mhm.
What's the next thing for you? Do you have any big goals? Do you have things you're looking to implement? Like what is the next, I don't know, 12 to 24 months look to you based on just like new things that you're wanting to add?
No, yeah, absolutely. So pretty much kind of my next venture, I suppose, because with the real estate company, like I kind of mentioned, with our marketing spend and with how we run the business, we had kind of two options. Well, we can start another business in the same realm, or we can just duplicate what we did here and do it in another city. And we kind of decided to just leave what we have here as far as the real estate investing side, just because of how we do things here. It's almost that we would have better results just doing real estate investing just here than trying to duplicate in these other cities, just because we know every street like the back of our hand here, right? And so it's easier to just capitalize and triple down on this city and start something else. So that thing for us was the fact that I did learn organic SEO. It kind of turned into something where we started an SEO agency kind of unnaturally, right? So specifically in the real estate investor niche too, it's something where we now do websites for other clients across the country. I mean, we have clients who all do well in Oklahoma City, Tampa, San Antonio, and all these very large markets that we were able to get access to. With a lot of other social media branding and things like that, with other podcasts I was on, unnaturally, yeah, people were like, "Hey, like this website idea is very cool. I definitely want to try and see if I can implement it in my market. Would you do the website for me?" And I was like, sure, let's try this out. It ended up being something that is we enjoy doing it, and it's definitely scaling, and it's a lot easier to scale than maybe trying to copy and paste what we did here in another city. So that's kind of our next couple of years is focusing on our website clients for all different real estate investors across the country. So
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with TV with me. We had success with TV for many years, and someone just kind of pushed me to start helping
yeah,
other people. And so I reached out to, I think it was like eight investors I knew that would probably do well on TV if it worked in their market, and it popped
yeah,
off. And I think we're still 4 years later. I think we still have most of them on board with us, and just kind of
right,
evolved into a new business. But
exactly,
one thing I do want to say with going into other markets. I've seen many people go into second markets.
hmm,
I think it's a great thing to do if you're set up to do it. What I mean by that is that I know for me, I think the last probably 5 to 10 years have been different where, first 10 to 15 years, if someone showed me a shiny object, I'd go after it, whether it was another
right,
market or, multi-level marketing or something of that nature.
right,
And what I tell people is like, if you have something really good, I wouldn't take your hands off of it and really try and start like another market, for instance, until you
right,
have it all set up to where like literally if it didn't need you or you weren't there,
hmm,
that it ran on its own, right?
right,
Not saying that you can't do it a little bit sooner, but for me, I feel like the ones that I've seen do it and do it right, they get something set up to where it's way far ahead. It's very advanced. It's very automated. They have people in place. So when they do
yep,
go and try another market, it's not too distracting. Because if someone is managing the business and looking at properties and really deep in their business and then they take that time and go somewhere else, if this
right,
works, then that may not matter taking that time away. But sometimes it takes a while for this other thing to work. And if this other thing starts going down, it can
hmm,
really affect everything. So just kind
right,
of a bit of advice for anybody who's listening and just kind of my 2 cents for you if you just do decide to go into
absolutely.
other markets.
Yeah, and for me, it's something where we aren't against the fact of going into another market. It's just I think for our model, it was a decision. Okay, you can work hard to build one of two things, and obviously it's going to take some hard work. And we were just kind of at the point to add more of a spend per month, to add employees and things like that, to then do it. What's the upside for each one? So does that mean we never will go to a second market? No. There we may, but for right now, that's just kind of the route we took. So
Yeah, and another thing is like to think about is, if you're wholesaling houses and you're only doing 1 out of 10, you're taking down, instead of going to
hmm,
another market and start wholesaling, why don't you figure out how to take some of those properties down, maybe make more
right,
money on those flips so you don't have to do as many transactions, or keep a lot of those properties so you're actually
right,
building wealth. That's one of the things
yeah,
we're doing right now. We're keeping anywhere from about 3 to 5 properties we're flipping, keeping them in our portfolio, and it's just
oh
adding
nice,
a ton of net worth to the
hmm,
business. Not only that, but it's saving a lot of money on taxes for the other things that we're doing as well. So
right.
there's definitely ways to optimize the business in a different way if you're not, scattering yourself too thin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I 100% agree.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, let's start wrapping up, man. This has been awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess kind of wrapping up. Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered that you feel like people should either know about you or know about kind of the things that you've done that would kind of help them in their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess with kind of how we all do things, I know that obviously there is the controversy of, oh, should I do nationwide wholesaling? Should I do local wholesaling? Whatever works for you. For us, just doesn't mean that you don't need to just focus on one local market. For us, that's where we just found the most success, for us personally. So I would say that is there is people out there who do deals all across different states and things like that. That's great. But just what worked for us very well that we tripled down on was our local market, because we realized for our skill set and kind of how we do things, and how our business is set up with the way we want it to be set up, it just worked the best for us, with how all the numbers and everything were flowing. So yeah, I mean with that too, with local wholesalers, obviously I can relate to a lot of them, and how it all works. So for us, obviously with the SEO stuff, if there is people out there who are looking to get a website set up, I'd be happy. You guys can DM me or hit. We have an agency website as well. You guys can happy to be hop on a call with me to if you would like to do it. It's something where I would recommend as far as the website stuff. Definitely have your basis set. You're doing consistent deals for the most part, as SEO can be a long-term game. But it's definitely a digital asset that is definitely worth quite a bit to have in the long run, as you're getting a lot of motivated sellers on autopilot. So yeah, that's kind of the one thing I guess I have for everyone else as far as what I've done. But yeah, I definitely appreciate this. This was awesome. So
Cool. So how can people get a hold of you? So Dawson, it sounds like he does SEO for real estate investors. So you want to tell them where to go to a website, and then also if you want them to hit you up on Instagram.
yeah, absolutely. So our agency website is houseflipseo.com. Go there and you can book a call with me. It's just a 30-minute call and see if SEO may be right for you, depending on how your business is set up. And also on Instagram, you can hit me up at Dawson, Dawson, and then it's underscore SKOR, is my Instagram tag. So feel free to shoot me a DM there. And I'd be happy to chat with you guys if SEO may feel like the right fit for you.
Cool. Dawson
Yeah.
Skorcheski, 21 years old, crushing it. So if you guys want to reach out to him, follow him, give him some love. Appreciate you coming on here, Dawson. Look forward to seeing kind of your journey over the next few years, and we'll
Yeah.
reconnect and let us know if there's anything we can do for you to support your journey.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate all the time today. It's been awesome.
All right, man. Talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.